Welcome, everyone. We're back, this time with a live stream, and it's an exciting show tonight, Kieran.
Certainly is. Yeah, we've had some great releases this morning to chat about, and we also had a fantastic weekend last weekend to chat about too. So we've had a bit going on.
Lots happening in the Heresy sphere as well. Today, we were lucky enough to see the World Championship preview and what's to come for the Horus Heresy. That's all very exciting stuff. We're going to give our first impressions on some of what's been shown for the Horus Heresy. And
hopefully we have less technical issues.
Sorry?
Hopefully we have less technical issues than Games Workshop.
Oh, man, how bad was that? I was waiting impatiently on the couch. My TV volume was up to 100 and I still couldn't hear anything.
Oh, man, it was so good. In all the comments, everyone was like, oh, you got to understand, they're a small startup company. They don't have the I don't have the resources to get a live stream up. Yeah.
Me and my cousin watching the stream together in the house, and he just turned to face me. He's like, $1 billion company, huh? $1 billion company. This is the shit they're serving up. We got there in the end, though. Somehow the sound sounded worse after the technical issues were resolved, but they got in the end. So, yeah, we're going to go through some of what's been shown, and then we're going to flow into the main topic of the episode, which is talking about the handful of games that we had last weekend, discussing some of the trends that we picked up in those games, our favorite units, and also ones that seem to disappoint. We've got a few folks in the chat at the moment as well. Hello, chat. We're a bit light on the chat because we've just completely raw dogged this one straight to YouTube.
Out of nowhere,
Gone in dry, and this is what we're getting so far. So, all right, Kieran, if you don't mind, you're the master of the images. You have them. Let's get the first ones up on screen, and let's go through some of what was shown just today at the World Championship previews.
So first up, we've got the Legion Breaches. We knew they were coming, but still really good to see them. What do you think?
I don't mind them. I'm not a big fan of the bucket style heads. I do much prefer the older breacher heads that looked a lot more reinforced. These ones kind of look to me like they're a little bit too Tin Man or too Ned Kelly. That's an Australian reference.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how many people will understand that, but to me they look a little bit Ned Kelly.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think the helmets are still better than like the regular Mark III helmets because I think they're absolutely horrible. But they're still not like they're still not a patch on the original Mark III that we used to have back in the day on the plastic Prospero models and the was it Prospero? Anyway, back on the old Prospero, but on that kit. So I think they're decent. I'm not sure how I feel about the shields, to be honest. I think they look a little bit strange. They've got that kind of trim around the bottom of the shield that they seem to put on all of the shields now, like the combat shields that you get in the Command Squad frame and on the combat shields in the Mark VI Assault kit. And I don't really like it. I like that the kind of the wing detail motif, like on the outside, is kind of toned down a little bit from the original shields.
Okay.
But I think in general, overall, I still prefer the original kind of resin breacher shields to these ones. I think
I tend to agree. I mean, that trim and the sort of the lenses and stuff, that's part of the new Heresy plastic design language. Like you said, we've seen that on shields that have been previously released. You've got the combat shields in the Assault Marines kit and in the Command kit as well that sort of share that same motif.
Yeah.
What I do like is the subtle little drum-fed bolters. That's cool.
I was just about to say, bro, that's a really nice touch. Like some different little bits. Like also the breaching charge on that sergeant's belt is pretty tasty. But
Yeah.
I
Hey,
could definitely see.
I was reading the
Yeah.
rules for the las cutter as well, and that's got a bit of a glow up now. It's actually not too bad.
Yeah. No, it is. It's definitely definitely like been turned up a little bit, and like that's kind of like the experience we've had with third edition so far, isn't it? That there's nothing kind of like that's completely horrible anymore. Like there are still like
Mm,
some options that are obviously better than others, but I feel like you wouldn't feel like such a fool for using whatever kind of weapon from the kit you felt that you wanted to put on your models, because I think they all can kind of work to at least some degree now. But I can definitely see those bolters finding their way to a lot of seeker squads, just with a little scope
yeah.
on top maybe. But the
I mean,
the drum mags.
this kit has been a long time coming. Ever since
Yep.
we have had plastic heresy in our lives,
Yep.
everyone's been screaming for breacher kits, and
Yep.
it's quintessentially heresy to me. Like
It
like
is. Yeah.
when I think about heresy, I think about Sakaran battle tanks, contempted dreadnoughts, cataphracti
Yep.
terminators, and breachers. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what
This
kind of comes to mind.
this has definitely been the most requested kit. Like you said, like every time there was a new release, people said it's cool, but it's not plastic breaches. We just want plastic breaches. Every time there was a new tank in second edition, they'd be like, "Where are our plastic breaches?" So it's good to finally get them, even if I don't really like them. Um, but people getting what they want finally, which is cool. But yeah, no, it's good. It's good to round out the whole kind of range, I suppose, a little bit. Now we just need kind of plastic bikes, I think, and maybe some speeders.
Do you think breaches will be a popular choice in armies going forward?
Um, I think I think they're probably better now than they were in second edition, but I don't think they're as good as they were in first edition when they could all have melter bombs and all of that. So
Yep.
I think they're a definite kind of viable kind of choice. It's just the fact that the other kind of slots that they compete with have line two. I think that's the
Yep.
big difference. Like if these guys had something like they don't have line one or anything, do they? Like if they had something like
No,
line
they've
one,
got one.
they got line one.
Yeah.
Oh, I reckon they're definitely viable then because they are far more survivable against certain targets than the other units. It does take a reaction to use the shield wall rule, which is a bit annoying. So a lot of the time they won't even get that kind of bonus. Then you'll be kind of they'll only be extra survivable against targets that are going through their 3-up save. But now that they're in plastic and that you've just worded me up there that they're line one, I think they're definitely a choice, and they can go in rhinos this edition as well, which is something that they haven't been able to do previously, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great point. And also, it is a cool way of getting a cheeky couple of grav guns into a list as well.
Yep, or las cutters, yeah, like you said,
Or
there's
las cutters, exactly.
options, yeah, some really cool options.
Very good. All right, moving on.
The next one was probably the more anticipated one, although we've been asking for them not quite as long, but we've got the Cataphracti finally.
Mm.
In kits, one of them has the Volkite charges and power weapons, and the second one has combi bolters and power fists. What do you think of these guys?
When we saw the preview, or it wasn't a preview, it was more a teaser, wasn't it? Of the from the last big preview stream that we had, it was the Volkite sort of being dragged across the leg,
Yeah.
from like a reverse angle of the
Yeah.
Cataphracti, and
Yeah.
it did look quite promising. When we
from like a reverse
started,
Yeah.
when we started seeing the color plates from the third edition books that had the new Cataphracti artwork in them,
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I wasn't too hyped about it. I don't really like the design changes personally.
Yeah.
And seeing these models now, it reaffirms my position on seeing that artwork for the first time. These just aren't for me.
Yeah.
There's a lot about them that doesn't sit too right with me.
Yeah.
Unlike some of the new Terminator sculpts that we've seen Games Workshop do, like the Indominus Terminators that have amazing proportions and they've got a really great sense of bulk and weight and momentum to their movement.
Yeah.
I believe that this Cataphractii kit, it lacks that sense of that weight, gravitas in the sculpt. They look a little bit too light on their feet.
Yeah.
And not only that, I think the changes in the Paterges, especially across the arms, and sort of how they've changed the proportions in the legs and the torso, make the Cataphractii seem more slim and less sort of chonky. So yeah, these are my first impressions. Obviously, like I haven't seen these in the hand. They could change. They could change my opinion definitely once I sort of see them in the hand and see them up close. Like the Saturnine stuff has kind of changed my opinion slowly over time.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
However, yeah, I'm not a fan of like this. Like it's almost like a low breastplate but a super high gorget, and then the head in there. It's already a tall sort of set head. That bucket sort of Ned Kelly head as well. It makes this section of the Terminator seem really stretched out and long, which I'm not the biggest fan of. Having said that, though, it's great to see the kit come with multiple weapons and the different shooting weapons. I mean, obviously, the Volkite was the suspicion in the loadout, considering that's what they come stock with in the rules as well.
Yeah. I think it's 2 separate kits, right? So you don't get both options in the same box, I don't think.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think it is going to be 2 separate kits.
Yeah.
Yeah, however, like I'm not super wrapped in this kit. It's gonna be really interesting to see how the new Legion plastics interact with this kit as well. You know, thinking ahead, I've got a sneaking suspicion that they're going to be doing Justaerin Termies as the first Legion Termies in plastic, whether that be a full kit or whether that be like a plastic upgrade for this kit. No one knows just yet, but it's going to be interesting to see if it is an upgrade kit, how it interacts with this. How do you feel about them, Kieran?
Look, I feel largely the same way. And to be honest, I wasn't expecting too much. I got excited when we saw that first teaser, and you could hardly see any of it, so I was fine. And then people started showing the artwork from the rule book, and I kind of killed my kind of expectations for them, because I don't really like the redesign. For me, it's a bit of a strange one. It kind of feels similar in a way to when we got the Primaris in 40K. Oh man, and now look at those fucking power fists. Yeah, oh my god, that's an absolute nightmare. But
yeah, they're really not good, are they?
So bad. They desperately need a lightning claw to cover that up. But yeah, going back to what I was saying, like it feels like with the Primaris, we needed new Space Marines, but we just needed Space Marines that were properly proportioned at a better scale with better poses. But we would have still been fine with just an updated Mark 8 tactical marine kit that would have sold like hotcakes. People would have bought it still, but they completely redesigned the range and the aesthetic and the design of Space Marines to sell a new range of miniatures. And it feels like they've taken that approach a little bit with the Heresy in 3rd edition. Whereas, previous plastic kits like the Mark IV, the Mark III, the Tartarus, and the Cataphractii were all updated versions of the original Forge World design. They just had thicker proportions. They were a bit taller. In most cases, they look a little bit better. Perhaps maybe some of the Forge World models had better poses though. But when it came to third edition, they completely dropped that. They redesigned everything, and we did get models that are have better proportions, which is what we want. And I'm not complaining at all about the proportions and the scale and the posing, which I think is largely improved. Although there are still some very strangely and awkwardly posed Marines in the tactical kits. But they redesigned the armor marks in like a Primaris style, where they didn't just kind of update, the existing design and aesthetic, with the superior tools that they have and the new kit design that they have. They went above and beyond that and properly redesigned and reimagined the different marks. And apart from the Mark II, which I think is good, and the Assault Marines in particular, which are excellent.
Yeah.
I didn't like the Mark 6. I thought it was weaker than the Forge World version, apart from the scale and all of those other aspects. Just the simple design of the armor, I thought was weaker than the Forge World one. The Mark 3, the new plastic, I think is terrible compared to the old design. Very weak. And now these Cataphracti, for me, they're not bad, and I'm sure they'll be better in hand the way kind of we experienced with the Saturnine Terminators and Dreadnought, to be fair. They are better in person. I just I would have just preferred an updated Cataphracti kit design, based on the old models, just a little bit taller in better poses, maybe with some longer limbs. But this is very skinny around the waist, and it's, to be fair, the torso is the main kind of culprit. As you identified before, I'm not a massive fan of the shoulder plates either. I do like the legs though. I think the legs are fine. But even the combi bolter redesign kind of just looks a bit strange to me. Like, yeah, I'm not a massive fan. I'll still be getting them to see how they look in person, but I think you definitely kind of took the right route and are justified in your call to kind of do your own Cataphracti, because I know you were kind of up in the air about whether to do that or not, or wait for the new kits. But the amount of faith I have with Games Workshop at the moment when it comes to redesigning Heresy kits, I think you definitely took the right path. Like the Dreadnoughts and the tanks that are all exact copies of the old designs, just updated with cleaner lines and better molding and all of that. Perfect. But these infantry kits that they've redesigned just haven't done it for me at all.
Part of me wants to say that it's also design change for change's sake as well. Like they need to make them just different enough to feel as though like your old collection has been made redundant in some way, shape, or form. So
if people wouldn't buy them anyway, though.
If you're migrating one plastic Cataphracti Terminator to another plastic Cataphracti Terminator that looks exactly the same, that just has better proportions, I feel like that's not enough of an incentive to go out and buy, or feel like you should go out and buy another one. Maybe there is a degree of design psychology behind it. That's what I'm kind of suggesting, because there was nothing wrong with the original designs. In fact, they're amazing. And just looking at this Terminator again, like the Cataphracti also have that Unification era lightning bolt motif across their chest as well, that kind of interlinks with the cowl over the head and part of the face on some of them too. That's all gone. This is more like reminds me of Tony Stark when he builds his first Iron Man suit in the cave. It's kind of missing that. Missing that sort of design language, and it feels like it's just change for change's sake almost.
Yeah, I think there's probably definitely an aspect of that. Like, the whole point is to sell new models, like as if they wouldn't have sold regardless. But I'm sure that is a factor from, the higher ups in Games Workshop. I also think like the new kind of design aesthetic reflects the personal preferences of the people running the specialist studio, who we know love, that old Rogue Trader vibe from back when they were getting into the hobby. That's their nostalgic kind of era. and that's what they want to try and recapture. And we've definitely seen a more kind of Rogue Trader vibe to all of these infantry kits. And just for me personally, that's not my vibe. I wasn't playing during Rogue Trader. I've been in the hobby for like 25 years or whatever, but that was before my time even. Whereas, the golden era for me was, the first set of Forge World design kits, and I don't think they need to improve on that design. They just need to improve the posing and the scaling and all that kind of thing. So it's it's just personal preference, and I think that this is just reflective of the personal preference of the people in charge at the moment.
Yeah. Very valid comments. All right, let's move away from the Legion stuff now and get to something that is brand new for the Heresy. We've got this new Skitarii battle group that was shown. Now, I just want to caveat my comments by saying that I think the color scheme choice is not good for this kit at all, and it doesn't really show off some of the potential of these models. But I really like them. I think they're super characterful, unique to the setting and to the game. It's something we've never kind of seen before, even in terms of design language for Mechanicum in Heresy.
Yeah.
And quite faithful to the description of them in the books, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I maybe I'm less critical of the Mechanicum models because I'm less of a fan of the Mechanicum, and of course we always want the absolute maximum and the best for the factions that we really love. But I think these are great. Like you said, the color scheme is like less than ideal for showing off these models. And when these came up after like an hour and a half of looking at Nurgle models, I was like, what? Just more Nurgle models? Like they just look like, unless you look at them carefully, they could be like an AOS like Nurgle kind of faction of some sort or a demon faction. But yeah, I think they're really good. I think if you added some black in there or some red, I think it would be a much stronger kind of color scheme. So I'm looking forward to seeing what people do with these. And I'm looking forward to seeing the rules as well, because there's something new that we haven't had before. And be interesting to see how they fit into the game. Like, you could definitely imagine having like a bunch of these guys, I don't know, with a Titan or with some Knights, or just expanding on your regular Mechanicum army. So I'm pretty keen to see these. They do, I don't know, for me, they definitely have like an Age of Sigmar vibe. I think it's the robes, the way they're sculpted, and also the way they're painted. It's kind of saying like night haunt to me. The those undead ghosts range. So maybe I think we saw that the was it the I can't remember if AOS guy was coming across to Heresy or Old World. I think it might have actually been Old World, but I think it looks like a little bit of an AOS influence in there. But you're definitely more of a Mechanicum fan than I am. So are you keen to get some of these or try them out, or do they kind of pique your interest at all?
They do pique my interest. I'm actually really keen to see how they will interact with the Mechanicum army, because we know fundamentally from what's already written in the fluff is that the Skitarii are almost like their own entity entirely within the Mechanicum, right?
Yeah.
And they're not really beholden to any of the orders of the Mechanicum. So it's going to be interesting to see how they interact and what they can also offer on the table from a gameplay perspective, how that's going to make your army more dynamic. I hope it will, because it'd be great to see this sort of stuff on the board a little bit more frequently, rather than just as maybe like an escort for a Titan, because you never really see a Titan in games of Heresy anyway. It's just way too impractical. What else have we got here? We got
I'm wondering if it's how they kind of introduce a bit more line to the mech, maybe through these guys.
Yeah, Yeah, it could be.
Gameplay wise.
If anything, that's kind of what Mechanicum is lacking in a way, just like a standard basic line infantry. I mean, you've got Thralls at the moment. However, they don't really offer anything outside of what Thralls essentially do. And beyond that, all you've got is Automata. So it's going to be a good dynamic shift for mech, hopefully. I hope they're interesting to play, and it's going to be cool to see alternative color schemes on these models, because right now I think that like the robes, they kind of look like Hessian sacks, and they kind of getting around like homeless Mechanicum at the moment. Or like steampunk Tuscan Raiders or something. So
the armor and the cloaks are just too close in color, right? There's no contrast. They don't really pop out on the screen.
There's not much depth in that copper, and I don't really understand why it is copper and whatnot. So it's going to be good to see some alternative schemes, and then obviously we've got some sort of command choice for them as well in the Pilgrim Marshal, which is a really cool model. I like the silhouette. I think it's a great silhouette.
Yeah, it looks a bit goofy, the one on the right there with his arm up in the air, but the other two look really nice. I like that. I like that helmet option. Yeah, it looks really cool. And the little cyber skulls and cyber familiars are really nice as well.
Yeah, so very exciting for mech players, I'm sure. And to add to the mech party, we've got the Voltarax now coming in plastic with a few
very cool,
quite noticeable yet subtly done changes. So you've got obviously the changes to the Voltarax missile system up there, and they have kind of changed the proportion of things on this kit. It's got less of a sort of like a Z-axis profile. It sits a little bit more sort of stout and narrower. However, the composition of the model is still extended down below with, those mechadendrites and stuff hanging from the bottom.
I love those little mechadendrites. Yeah, that tiny little power saw on one of them. Very cool. Very creepy, like Dark Eldar vibes in a way. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, creepy, which is great, because I think the mech almost want for a bit more of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because it is they do have that element of mystery around them. So it's great to see that represented, through something as creepy as this.
Oh, they're dodgy, inhuman bastards, mate. Yeah, all that horror. They need a little bit more of it. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. So models wise for the Heresy, I think that's all that they previewed. Is there any other model ranges you want to touch on at all, just briefly?
I don't think, nothing in depth. I really liked the Nurgle stuff that we saw, particularly the Nurgle stuff in Warhammer Quest. Apart from that big Demon Prince, I think every other model was pretty good. So, man, like, I don't know, it's pretty tempting to do a Nurgle Warriors of Chaos army now, and I'll resist, of course, and keep working on my high elves, but they look fucking good. They look really tasty.
You know what?
They got one of the best ranges now.
Well, I've never considered a Nurgle army in fantasy. I've just never ever liked them. They've done nothing for me up until now.
Yeah.
I think that it's more tastefully done. It's less sort of maybe so on the nose, or comical, and it feels darker, right?
Yeah, we've gone from like dark and creepy through the sloppity Bilepiper phase, and now we're kind of back at the slightly more dark and creepy phase, I think, which is nice. It's good design language on those Nurgle models. I really like them.
I'm gonna have to hold strong too, and just resist that one out.
Yeah.
Tom in the chat says, hopefully the super heavy tank transfers from Liber Imperialis soon.
Yeah, Yeah, that's the big
So that was
flame.
essentially a fell blade chassis with a massive Titan grade flamer on the front.
Yeah, it was like, was it? Yeah, I can't remember if it had the fell blade turret or if it had the Falchion style turret, didn't it?
Yeah,
With the glass shield on it.
the fixed one, right?
Yeah, I think so, with the flamers on it. But yeah, it looked cool. So hopefully that comes across. You know, we're getting into the Baneblade kind of era now, and there's like 20 different versions of tanks on the same, hull with just different weapons on top. But people love their super heavies; they'll keep buying them. So yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see when they actually start migrating some of that stuff over, if they do.
Yeah, we've been waiting for the dark mech,
we're
haven't
still
we?
waiting for the dark mech stuff. And what about like something easy, like the Palisade drop pod, right? The shield generator drop pod. That's been around now for probably, I want to say, a couple of years, and we still don't have a whiff of that in Heresy. So it's going to be interesting to see if and when they put this
And
stuff
instead,
over.
we got that stupid Arachno fucking gun platform
that no one asked for. All right, and just to touch on some Black Library stuff to close out from the preview. It looks like Games Workshop are selling. Well, they're making money for Old Rope here, off the back of some re-released Horus Heresy novels. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kieran, but I think they're doing 12 of the most important Heresy novels, right? To take someone from the start of the Heresy all the way to the end of the Heresy, or up to the Siege of Terror.
Yeah.
And I assume that they're going to have like a reskin with new artwork and be hardcover or something like that.
I think that's the basic idea. Yeah, just the same stories, just repackaged.
When
to,
Black Library
make them look nice and new.
I was hoping for maybe an announcement of the first Scouring novel, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, me too. It was a bit of a letdown.
All right. That was it from the World Championship previews. Now let's get to the main topic of the show, Kieran. Last Sunday, we had all the boys over playing games together in the local hobby group, and we had a handful of more games played, and we just want to discuss our takeaways from the games, what we liked about some of the units that we were using, and maybe some that disappointed us.
Yeah.
How do you want to sort of set this up, Kieran? What sort of beats do you want to hit on first?
Well, first of all, I think just needs to be said that it was very nice of you, generous of you, to have us all over into the Power Fist studio to play some games, which was great fun. It's good turnout as well. We had people coming from far and wide, interstate. So it was a lot of fun. Get the hobby group together again, have some games. It's been a while probably since Lurg, since we've done something similar. So great vibes there. Great setting as well. And of course, you were the host with the most and provided us with some amazing Balkan-style food, lunch. So what have we got here?
I had to just to inject a bit of fun and culture into the day. Yeah, some Balkan food, big spread for everyone. Everyone's bellies were full for throughout the day, so
yeah,
it was good. It was a bit of fun. I enjoy feeding people. It's good. It brings me joy.
Yeah. No, it was a perfect day. It was a fantastic day. It was very, very warm actually in Melbourne too. But we had a few beers and a few. Was it rakia? And we got through the day.
We absolutely started the morning with our rakia, yes.
That's it. I was like, yeah, if I'm going to drink this stuff, I better start now. So I'm sober by the time I drive home. But yeah, it was a really good time, man. That stuff is like Prometheum or something, bro. That caused me panic too. Taking a sip of that stuff.
Too. Shit.
Yeah.
Very good.
I don't have that salamander constitution, yeah.
That's it, bro. I just raised on that stuff.
But yeah, no, we got some games in. I had a couple of games. You had a couple of games. Did you have 2 or 3 games?
I had 3 games.
3
All
games.
amazing.
I only got 2 in. So I know you played the Iron Warriors of Xavier, and you played Brod's Dark Angels. Brod, your nemesis.
My nemesis, Brod. Yeah, my oldest hobby friend, but also my arch nemesis. Yes.
Yeah, who couldn't join us tonight, unfortunately, but we'll have him on another time for sure.
His delicate skin got sunburnt.
Oh, I know. Yeah, imagine that. I don't know how. Obviously, he's got different weather to us today. It was bloody freezing. But want to tell me a little bit about the list you brought?
So we all played 2,000-point games in the day. So I want to preface all we're going to talk about in the economic system of playing 2,000-point Horus Heresy. Now, there were some of us that were still new to picking up the edition as well. So we just felt that 2,000 points was palatable point size. We get to sort of play and practice with a whole bunch of different things. But we can also get a number of games in on the day, right? So in my list, and I've spoken about this before on previous podcasts, it was just running with minimal line, just to see how far I can push a Vanguard list. Now I am restricted with, the units that I currently do own. So there was, no major proxying or anything like that going on in our games. The list essentially comprised of some Cataphracti Termes, some Fire Drakes, some Pyroclasts, a Cataphracti Centurion, a Master of Signals, which I'll touch on in a little bit because that is very important to how the list works. A unit of Rapiers. I also had a Mortificator there to try him out with a modest loadout on a Contemptor. I think he just had the Gravis Heavy Bolter and a Fist. A Flamestorm Pred, and I want to say that was it. I didn't get much for the points. It was a very small and elite army. Oh, yeah, and the Kratos. How could I forget that? So, all in all, it still wasn't many models on the board, and not only that, nothing had line. So
very elite.
Yeah, very elite. Oh, sorry. One more thing. I had a unit of Adherents, and they're in a drop pod. I knew I'd forgot something. Still, I think the list was under 26 or 27 models, so there wasn't much sort of on the board. And it was really just a challenge to myself to see how far I could push a list that didn't have any line. So there were some ups and downs in the day, obviously, and some of my own sort of teething issues to get through with the list. Obviously, it wasn't optimized in any way, shape, or form. These were just units that I kind of drawed upon that I had in my collection already. But played 3 very different lists. So Xavier, my first opponent, he was running Iron Warriors with Solar Auxiliar Allies in the Siege cohort, and I was surprised by a number of units in his list, namely the artillery tanks, which did a lot of consistent work for him all throughout the game. So I was very surprised by them. And then I played Dom, who had Iron Hands. Again, he was running a very elite army, maybe even more elite than me. He was rocking around with a couple of Land Raiders, 3 Predators, a Saturnine Dread, and a couple of characters. Inside his Land Raiders, he had Immortals. So he also didn't have any line, but he kind of found himself at a major disadvantage as well because he didn't have any Vanguard units to sort of rack up those points. So definitely not an optimized list in any way, shape, or form. However, Dom was one of us that was still very new to the edition and just wanted to put some models on the board that he had in his collection.
Yeah.
And then the third game, I played Brod, my nemesis, who was rocking Dark Angels. And I would say that his list was probably the most optimized of the three. He did have some thought and consideration into what he was taking. He had a couple of line units himself, and he also had some quite fruity or spicy units in that he was rocking some Phosphex Rapiers. Another pretty good tool he had in his list were 3 single individual land speeders. And they were like little status bombs, really. They had
with grav and havoc launchers and hunter killer missiles.
Not the Hellstrike missiles, the hunter killer missiles on them too. Which for 5 points a pop, ultimate bargain.
Yeah.
So yeah, all 3 of my opponents, even though they were playing legions, had very, very, very different lists. So it was great to have different experiences throughout. So I won't sort of go into the nitty gritty of the games because that will just end up with me waffling and putting everyone else on stream to sleep. However, I do want to touch on a couple of things after maybe you take us through what you played, Kieran, and then we can sort of discuss our points after that. So what were you playing?
So I actually chose to bring my Alpha Legion on the weekend. So the first time I've used them in 3rd edition. I was getting a little bit tired of the Emperor's Children, to be honest. I wanted to try something a bit different. And I actually have a larger Alpha Legion collection than Emperor's Children. So I had a few options to try from. And in particular, I wanted to try out some Dreadclaws who didn't see the tabletop at all in 2nd edition, and were one of my favorite units back in 1st. So I was keen to see how they came out in the new edition. So I brought a couple of those. But my list in general, I had a Praevian with 3 Darkfire Castellax. I had a Siege Breaker. I had 2 units of 5 Tartarus Terminators, both in Dreadclaws. One all with fists and combi plasma. The other one with a couple of chain fists, but mostly lightning claws. I had a cheeky 8-man Seeker squad in a Rhino. I had 3 tactical squads, 1 in Rhino, 2 on foot. I had 2 quad mortars, 2 like separate quad mortars, so that I could, hopefully Phosphex 2 different units with my Siege Breaker. I also had a Legion Champion in Terminator armor to go with one of the Terminator squads. And I think that was about it. I didn't have any space for the Arcus or the Scorpius or my heavy support squad or any of those units or the Leviathan that I used to take back in 1st edition. At 2,000 points, of course, it's a little bit limited. But I got to try out plenty of new stuff that I hadn't tried with the Emperor's Children yet in 3rd edition. So that was a lot of fun. I played against that same army with Dom and his Iron Hands in the first game, and then I also played Brod in my second game, and I only played 2 games, unlike you. So yeah, no, it was good fun. It was great to get the Alpha Legion out again. They definitely don't have the flavor they used to have in 2nd edition with mutable tactics, but they're still a lot of fun. Still a good army to use. I don't know. I enjoy using the Alpha Legion more than I enjoy using the Emperor's Children. So I think that's always been the way. Because I think just because I love the Emperor's Children too much, and when they die, I feel sad. And when the Alpha Legion die, I just don't care. So
all
I can
part
just
of the plan.
yeah, exactly. I can just play a little bit more freely, and there's no pressure to be honourable and accept challenges, or not run away from the enemy. And when you're playing the Alpha Legion, just about anything goes. So I find
You're
them
a
quite a fun
scoundrel
army
and
to
you want
play.
to play like a scoundrel.
Exactly right. Yeah, I think like Alpha Legion and Night Lords and those kind of armies allow you to be a little bit more of a scumbag, which can be fun.
Very fun. Get a good feed off that.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so let's touch down our first point, Kieran. What units surprised you the most from your games?
I don't know if I'd say surprised, but Dreadclaws are definitely back, baby. Fucking
Ooh.
so good. Yeah, love it. Like, they're a little bit different now than they used to be, of course, because they used to deep strike and fly around. Now they're just straight up flyers without the deep strike mechanic. So they come on from your board edge in turn 1, and then they can come on from any other board edge in subsequent turns. So they're really, really handy. They're not assault vehicles, but when the base is on the table, I think it's like about 4 inches, and then they can move another 15 inches, and then my Terminators were getting out 7 inches, and then no step up move, of course, because it was a disordered charge, but they were getting charges off every time they came on the table, so that wasn't an issue, and I just found them so flexible. So yeah, the Dreadclaws were really, really good. They were the most fun unit to use. It was a bit strange using flyers in this edition compared to previous editions, because the way that I rolled my reserves, I never rolled both of them on at the same turn. I was usually getting one on turn 1, one on in turn 2, which meant that I could have got away on the day with just bringing a single Dreadclaw model, even though my list had 2, because there was never call for to have more than one on the table because they disappear on the same turn.
Yep.
And they've got no shooting attack now. They can't fly around flaming people the way they used to in first edition. So once they've gone off the table and kind of performed their role, they don't really kind of have that much to do. But yeah, I found it such a great tool to get the Terminators where I needed them to be. And Terminators 2 now, like, really tasty, toughness 5. My trusty combi plasma from first edition has definitely died a sad death. It's pretty fucking pitiful now. But Terminators with power fists will always be good. And to be honest, I found them a really good anti-tank unit. And they were pretty much the only good anti-tank unit I had, because I'll talk about, when we talk about disappointing units later on, the unit that I thought, well, that has in previous editions been a good anti-tank unit, just doesn't cut the mustard these days. So I found getting them into combat, hitting tanks on 2s, especially with the chain fists, putting a lot of damage out there. I found that the most kind of surefire way to deal with enemy armor. And the way, the fact that you can shoot at one squad and charge another, I found really useful. Like, I had them come on, they'd fire their combi bolters and combi plasma into an infantry unit and then charge a vehicle and destroy it. I found that really useful. My other unit with a heavy flamer, they came on in the second game against Brod. They shot at his tactical squad and panicked them, making them fall back, and then charged into his Omega and killed it in the same turn. So, that felt really good. That was them coming on the board from the first turn, and they went on and did good things. They killed that other tactical squad. They went and killed his rapier quad mortar squadron as well. So in every game I had, the Terminators were definitely in the 2 games I had, both Terminator squads were my kind of MVPs and my most useful unit, but also the most fun unit to use, because they can get around, they can go where they need to go, they can avoid the enemies they need to avoid. So just, those Dreadclaws, super, super useful. Unfortunately, you can't really get any bonuses to aerial reserves unless you play Ultramarines with Remus Fantanus. So you are kind of reliant on rolling those 3+. But you get the little kind of reward of, if you don't, if you don't get them that first time, then if you get them on the second turn, they can come on anywhere you want. So very, very tasty. I think they were definitely my favorite unit. Did you have anything that kind of surprised you in a positive way?
I wouldn't say surprised, but I had 2 units that were consistently good, and they have been consistently good in all games that I've played so far, where I've used them in a list. And that is, the first one is the Master of Signals.
Yeah.
For what the amplification aspect that he has on my list.
Yeah.
And the second unit is the Kratos. Now, to touch on the Master of Signals, obviously playing an army that is very heavy on Vanguard, it is hard to get those Vanguard points. I think over the 3 games, I think I only clocked up Vanguard twice. 2 independent occurrences of getting Vanguard. One was a shooting Vanguard, so my unit of adherents came down and deployed out of their drop pod and shot a unit off an objective to score their Vanguard points. And the Master of Signals, right, where he comes in clutch, is turning a Vanguard unit into a line unit, because then it starts, it gets in the opponent's head and really makes the opponent second guess, hey, what is that Vanguard unit actually going to do in the next turn or in the next couple of turns? Will they just go the whole hog and chase my units and try and kill them off an objective? Are they going to be used as a force of pure destruction? Or is the game going to start to get flipped on its head, where all of a sudden that Vanguard unit that was expected to move has now diverted and gone for an objective and is now claiming more points than what it rightfully should on an objective? So that was one of the greatest tools I had with my lists, because outside of Vanguard, all I had to play for was secondary objectives.
Yeah.
So in nearly all my games, I won those secondary objectives off my opponent. So I was satisfied with the list in that regard. Okay, I know it can do secondaries, and I know it can do secondaries well. But when you do play a Vanguard, nothing's a sure thing. So you really have to rely on getting those secondaries, right?
Yeah.
And part of the list functionality is obviously having a unit in a drop pod, meaning that the Master of Signals also helps bring that unit on from Deep Strike Reserve too. So that came in clutch one of the games too. So Master of Signals paid dividends in all 3 games. He was terrific. And then one unit that I've seen or heard, that is a little bit maybe contentious, or maybe not contentious, but quite inconsistent in its output, is the Kratos. But I haven't had that experience with the Kratos. In every game that I've played, my Kratos has just put in consistent work. Now, in case anyone wants to know the loadout of the Kratos, it's got the Volkite Cardinal on top. It's got the shoulder-mounted autocannons, and then I'm playing it with Volkite Culverin sponsons as well. So it's making best use of stable with the autocannons on the hull, but not breaking the bank, in terms of points. So it's not like Maltalaz Kratos, for example, when it's like really heavily invested. But it puts out consistent firepower at high strength and at damage too. So a lot of the time I was targeting things like Castellax, like land speeders, Terminators, things that I could take chunks of wounds off, and it put in every single turn it shot. And being armor 14 all round in a 2,000 point economy, it is really tricky to take out as well. So I just used it as a bit of a bully, really. So I wasn't afraid of really pushing the Kratos up the battlefield as well, because playing the Kratos aggressively meant that I was pushing units in my opponent's face, giving them harder target priority. But now the vehicle's block line of sight as well, it had a twofold effect of protecting my own units or blocking important firing lanes that the opponent would use otherwise. So using the Kratos not only as a fire base, but as almost like a mobile piece of terrain really helped the rest of the list sort of function. And I didn't have transports like you did for my Terminator units. So I was caught walking across the board with cataphracti termies. Look, not the smartest idea in the world, don't get me wrong. In a perfect world, I wouldn't play them like that. Yeah. But it was great to experiment at the same time.
Yeah.
So they were my two units that maybe didn't surprise me, but definitely MVPs.
Yeah, I feel like in your list, the Master of Signal is just so important. Like, I've used him a few times now with the Emperor's Children, and he's never kind of done much for me. Mostly because I've had kind of the speed to get around and I've not needed him so much. But I feel like in your list, exactly, in your list, you're so heavily reliant on flipping and, well, more turning off the Vanguard rather than getting on the line for multiple victory points and objectives, that, yeah, he's such an important character. Yeah, I suppose, like, he's maybe a little bit of a challenge to play because you want to keep him hidden, right? So, but you also want to keep him within range of all those units, especially if they're going for enemy objectives. I suppose, like, he's the perfect candidate to be hiding in the middle of, like, some medium terrain, right? 3 inches, 3 inches away from the enemy on all sides.
You know what did actually surprise me, even though it was definitely not an MVP, what did surprise me was the Contemptor Dreadnought. I wouldn't say by any stretch it was as effective as what a Contemptor Dreadnought would have been last edition.
Yeah.
However, it exceeded my expectations. Obviously, we know that Dreadnoughts have taken quite the hit this edition, and they've really been sort of knocked back to the rest of the pack in terms of that internal sort of competitiveness. However, because I think he still had quite a modest loadout, being the Gravis Heavy Bolter and Fist, there wasn't a huge target on his back. Like if he had a dual shooting loadout, like a double plasma cannon or a double conversion beamer, right? So he had less of a target. So he was kind of okay to just go do his own thing unmolested most of the time.
Yeah. And
he was great against a unit of Ogrins. Obviously, he got into a combat with Zave's Ogrins. And even in the game against a Brod that I played, because he had the ascendancy over his infantry, he kind of just went about his day. So picking and choosing targets with Contemptors is probably more of a consideration these days.
Yeah.
Especially with changes to their weapon skill and ballistic skill, weapons and whatnot. But that was one unit that did surprise me. So I wouldn't call the Contemptor, it was amazing, but it was definitely solid in 2 out of the 3 games. So I would have no issues putting a Contemptor into my list moving forward.
And I did like when Brod got it down to 3 wounds, and then you just passed an intelligence 9 check in your movement phase and put him back up to 4 wounds with the Mortificator.
Great, right?
Yeah, really good, man. Like, start again. So really nice.
So although his maybe destructive capabilities aren't what they used to be, He can be a little bit of a sponge, when you need him
Yeah.
to, especially with the Battlesmith repair.
Battlesmith's so powerful now, yeah. Jose just asked about the Immortals. Did you have any trouble with them in your game? Because I feel like in my game, they kind of hid in their tanks most of the game to try and stay safe. And then when they did pop out, I made them fall back with a quad mortar or something of some sort, so they didn't have too much of an effect in my game with Dom.
The same thing happened in my game, really. Though they didn't really affect the overall sort of tide of the game. Because Dom had no ways of scoring. He purely just relied on secondaries, really, which I think my list did a little bit better than his.
Yeah.
So by that stage, I'd kind of run away with the game on points, and even if the Immortals were to come out of their tanks, they would not have changed the game at all.
I had a similar experience with Dom where I had a massive win on points, but he killed a lot more of my army than I did of his. Like, apart from my Terminators getting in and doing a bit, like my Seekers had nothing to shoot at all game. They pretty much stayed in their Rhino until like the last turn, I think, because he kept all of his units in AV-14, had nothing to shoot at. Quad mortars had nothing to shoot at with all the AV-14. So I found it really hard to deal with, to kill, but just racking up those points, it was a big differential in the end. But yeah, learning.
Let's get to the units that disappointed us. What were your greatest disappointments, Kieran?
I think my greatest disappointment, and like you said with the others, it wasn't necessarily like a shock, but it was these guys. It was the Castellax. To be fair, against Dom, they soaked up a lot of his firepower, and that was purely based on my ability to roll 5-up invulns. Apart from that, they contributed very little. Like, I know they died a sad death in second edition, and I never used them in second edition. They were a staple in my army during first, but compared to what they used to be, it's like these guys have been hit way harder now than like Contemptors have been hit going from second to third. Like, they used to be toughness 7, now they're toughness toughness 6. They used to be BS4 or BS5 with I can't remember what the upgrade was that you could give them. So they were hitting on 2s.
Targeting array.
Yeah, exactly. Now they're hitting on 5s. So, the Praevian used to shoot the enemy with his bolter, and then they'd be hitting on 2s, re-rolling 2s, and then being Alpha Legion, they'd be strength 8 Dark Lancers, Dark Fire Cannons with Lance, range 72, now it's range 36. They've just, they used to have Tank Hunter as well, so I'd be hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s. I'd be glancing everything on a 4, re-rolling failed rolls. Like, it's times have changed. Like, they barely did anything shooting wise, and they could be a threat in combat to weaker units like tactical squads. But the Praevian actually has no weapon upgrades. Like, all he can take is a pistol, so he doesn't contribute anything apart from like a Battlesmith 1 at intelligence 8. So it's not great. And he doesn't do anything else for them apart from, allow them to react. But he also now makes them susceptible to taking statuses. So the Praevian himself is not very good. And the Castellax, while being fairly cheap, they are also not good. Like, hitting on 4s with shooting is bloody terrible. Like, not good at all. And especially when, they're firing strength 8 weapons that, they're not going to bother most vehicles, right? And, you're going to hit with half your shots. And then, you'd be lucky to get 1 or 2 glances out of that. You're not getting any pens. So they're definitely not what they used to be. I'm not really sure what their role is now. but you know,
Did
I
you
was
get a
kind of
chance to-
expecting that.
Did you
I
get a
just wanted to
chance
see
to
him.
shoot them at some Terminators or anything like that? Any heavy infantry?
Nah, Dom didn't have any of that. And then against Brod, I didn't really shoot his inner circle because they were slowly walking across the table. And to be fair to Brod, he actually knocked my unit down to a single Castellax pretty quickly. He didn't finish the squad off in the end. The Pravian did kind of heal a wound on back on one of them, but yeah, they went down quickly against Brod, and then against Dom they survived really, really well, but they didn't actually do any damage back in return. So I suppose they're a little bit of a distraction effects in that regard. They could have soaked up a lot of firepower that didn't go into the rest of my army. But yeah, they didn't really do much for me. No, they're not scoring objectives, and they're not earning their points back in kills either.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
I think for me, the biggest disappointment in my list probably would have been my Cataphracti Terminators, actually.
Yeah.
Obviously, they were foot slogging across the battlefield, which didn't help them, I know. However, they were just there to engage any enemies that would come close, or be a nice sort of static unit for the line one, right? But just due to the opponents and the missions and stuff like that, they didn't really get that opportunity to sort of just stay stagnant on an objective.
Yeah. They look fucking good though. Way better than the new ones.
Even though they were moving,
yeah,
they still didn't reach a combat all day in all three games. So they were either shot up on the move, or they just didn't get an opportunity to get anywhere due to their lack of speed. So, like, in a way, my list had kind of set them up to fail. I'm sort of conscious of that fact. And the whole sort of strategy of putting them in that list and doing something similar to what I did in our game, Kieran, leaving them on an objective with line one and just kind of having that base of clocking up points turn by turn. I didn't get that opportunity in all three games. So although they were set up to fail a little bit, I just found that they didn't get their points back in any of the games. What was effective though were the Volkite charges in shooting, actually.
Okay.
They were surprisingly pretty decent. I think they ended up taking out one of Brod's land speeders or something like that later in the game. But yeah, sometimes you always, because they are armed with combat weapons, you just got that sort of like combat mentality for them, that's their only role. But yes, they do shoot as well.
Exactly.
But yeah, in terms of units, these guys were probably the standout for most disappointing, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah. And we were comparing our Terminators the next day, and you told me that these guys didn't get into combat. And, you know, I think my Tartaros fought, 7 different combats across my 2 games.
Yep.
And 5 of those combats were combats that I chose and I charged in, and, you know, I won. So, yeah, it's just that Dreadclaw makes such a big difference. And
a world of difference, right?
I finally, the opponent finally caught up with me a couple of times, and, you know, I think I lost a couple of squads. Like in one game, I lost one squad, and in the other game, I lost another. But they did their jobs. Like, they'd already cleaned up a couple of units by the time the opponent caught up with them, and it's just such a game changer, that speed. So I'm super, super happy to get those Dreadclaws back. But how good do those Cataphracti look, bro? Fucking, I don't know, mate. A bit better than those new plastic ones. I don't know.
Well, I'm not going to say it.
Haven't got any Power Fist in there to compare, but yeah.
I'm not going to say it, but moving on.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to touch on the missions for a moment. because we played just core rulebook missions. And I think I'm going to be quite critical here when I say this, but what I found with the missions is that they really don't offer much difference between one another. So they are essentially just variations of the same thing, all three missions. And what that does is that it really only gives you one way to play. Even though it's kind of dressed up as three missions, that it's all the same mission. Really, like realistically, not much changes. Besides the mechanic of the objectives going down in value, I think it's in the take and hold mission. Nothing else really changes between them. So what you start to see is a real skewing of the bell curve, so to speak, where line units, specifically line 2 units, start ruling the game, and not ruling the game in a destructive sense, but almost like in a non-interactive sense, where because line 2 is so powerful and because the missions don't offer any alternatives or any sort of real changes to how to score victory points, what I'm finding is that all line 2's job needs to do is just score, and that's it. They don't have to move, they don't have to shoot, they don't have to declare charges. Even when they're face to face with the enemy, right? Because you could just purely plonk them on an objective and steal an objective with tactical strength. So I think what is needed for a healthy metagame in the Horus Heresy is mission variation. Now, it's something that has sort of cropped up in the Heresy discourse lately, but having played enough core missions now, I think that I do agree with the fact that we are pining for missions that offer different ways to score. Kill points or something in the same vein as kill points will be great, because then it offers Vanguard armies more ways to score, and it forces your opponent who may not have a Vanguard style army to then start really playing and interacting with those line 2 units more than what they're doing currently. All of a sudden, that line 2 unit that you've invested in may need to go and actually try and kill something, which could have an effect on the game. And what I'd like to see as well as a kill point style mission is maybe an end of game mission, where there may be objectives on the board, but you can only score them at the end of the game. So really just offering more mechanics when it comes to missions, and alternate secondaries as well, because in every mission, you do have the same secondaries. They're just worth a different value of points. So that's the little gripe I've got with the missions moving forward. Obviously, this may not be such a big issue at events or where you've curated your own missions, where in a competitive or narrative sense, it doesn't really matter. But purely for pickup games and for those games where, you know, that aren't a part of an event or a grand narrative or something like that, and we just want to roll dice together, we want to have some missions that offer a little bit more variation in the gameplay mechanics. Because I think it's safe to say now that the core mechanics of the game are actually really quite good, and the internal balance of the leader books is quite good as well. It's probably the most balanced version of the game that we've got outside of the
Agreed.
squad mechanic, right?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Do you have anything you'd like to add to that or
I've
review?
got mixed feelings about that. I like the armies that line forces you and the current scoring forces you to create with lots of troops. I find that like visually pleasing to see armies with lots of models and lots of basic models as well. My hesitancy with kill points is that it let people just take the most killy option, and it kind of leads to lists that are they're optimized in a different way. I'm not saying like a heavy line army isn't optimized, but you see people just taking the absolute like most stick kicking units they can possibly take, and they don't really look like armies in the end. It's just like a collection of models, and it's kind of the way people play the old world, where you take the absolute minimum possible troops and you take the absolute maximum possible characters and rare units. So I like the army building incentives of line, but I don't like the way it plays in game, because it is a very passive way to play, right? And like you said, often your tactical squad or your line unit is better off not even shooting at the enemy, because then you might get return fired and you might lose those valuable scoring models. And it's definitely not in your interest to assault with your despoiler squad unless that is the only way to stop the enemy scoring. Like, because a despoiler squad's not going to kill anything in combat, right? And then you're going to be locked in combat and you won't be scoring. And it is a very negative way to play and very passive way to play with those units. So I like the armies that it builds, but I don't like the way it plays in game. And I'm not entirely sure how you fix that, apart from having a selection of different missions the way you suggested. So I definitely wouldn't get rid of the current missions in favor for other missions. I would just mix, add other missions to the mix, so that there are multiple ways to play the game.
That's
and
what
like
I'm
in an
suggesting.
event, you might have two of these kind of missions and then one kind of, kill point
that's what
style
I'm
mission.
suggesting. Let's get some more missions in the mix. So you've really got that D6 system for selecting missions like we used to have, rather than the D3 system where every result on D3 is just a riff on itself, essentially.
Yeah. And like, there is a big difference between, 2 objectives that degrade through the game and 4 objectives that stay at 2 points throughout the game. That definitely kind of favors different styles of army. Like, obviously one with 4 objectives is going to definitely favor an army that's more maneuverable and has more scoring options, whereas the 2 objective game is going to focus, favor armies that have got, bigger hitters that can protect and attack single objectives. But yeah, you're right. They are scored all exactly the same at the end of your turn. Like, there's no kind of there's no variety in that. So
I'm not saying this is a salty sea dog either.
Yeah. I'm not even sure like about
Bad
scoring at the end of games and stuff. I don't know if I like that either. I do like turn by turn scoring, because again, like with end of game scoring, the best way to win that game is to just destroy your opponent and then have one tactical marine left, right? Like, it's not about playing the
At
game.
least you're engaging more.
Yeah, you are, but you're just taking a list with like minimal tactical marines then. So it really is important to have all of those types of missions available and played, I think.
Yeah,
So people, hopefully take a list that's balanced between the two.
Because I had a bad experience in the weekend because I chose to write a list that had all Vanguard and no line. In fact, out of the three games, I won 2 of those games, and the only game I lost was in that first one against Zave, where he came well equipped with line, but I only narrowly lost that one, 11-12. So I was still in it, right?
Yeah.
So all I'm suggesting is that it would be better and healthier for the system moving forward as well, just to add to the core missions and give us some different ways of playing missions, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I think
that keeps list writing interesting as well, right? Because in one of those 6 games that you roll up, it may be the kill points mission, right?
Yeah.
So you want your list to kind of have that contingency in place as well.
Yeah.
All right. That's all from me with regards to our recent games. Kieran, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up the show?
I was going to ask, we've spoken about our units that surprised us and disappointed us. Were there any from your opponents that you were, surprised by in a positive way or disappointed by?
Oh, man. So, Xavier's game, where he had the Iron Warriors and Solar, I was surprised by a number of units.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before, his artillery tanks were terrific.
Yeah.
And he was running some really good combos on them too. So he ran the Siege Maniple, Tertio or Cohort or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it gave an additional pinning 1 to pinning weapons. So his Basilisks and Medusas were firing at pinning 3.
Dirty dog.
Now, they targeted my Terminators front and center because we just had the worst deployment setup ever. Like, on top of changing and adding missions, they need to get rid of Hammer and Anvil deployment setup. It is the worst form of deployment setup. It's garbage. He just shelled all my Terminators that were foot slogging turn 1. Rightly so, being strength 10 shots, damage 2, and pinning 3. But he was also clipping the Predator as well, right? And because he clipped the Predator side armor so many times with those artillery shells, it just blew the Pred up straight away because the Predator's only side armor 11.
Yeah.
But he was also comboing that nicely with his Cognis Signum and one of the command units for the Solar as well.
Yeah.
That gives some bonuses to barrage weapons or firing out of line of sight. So that was a big surprise. He also had 2 Iron Circle that were guarding his Warsmith, and oh my god, I am in love with Iron Circle. Not only are they probably my favorite Heresy models, but now their rules are just so fucking cool. They reduce damage coming in. Their weapons are great. Their shooting attacks are amazing. And they've also got Firestorm. They are a serious unit in this edition. Whereas last edition, they were anything but. So it is fantastic to see the rise of the Iron Circle once again, and they are absolute sponges. They soak up so much damage.
Yeah.
It's terrific. So they surprised me heaps. Dom's Saturnine Dreadnought surprised me in a way that maybe isn't too much of a glow up. The destructive capabilities of a Saturnine Dreadnought is very questionable, I think. I'm not sure it's going to get back its hefty points in a lot of games, depending on how you use it. Right? I think the double inversion beam is probably the best way to run it. And Dom had the inversion beamer and grav loadout on his one. But even then, couple of bad scatters, and the damage output is greatly reduced.
Yeah.
But for the points you pay, I'm not sure that a Saturnine Dread will get its points back. More often than not. And that's got to do with the speed and pacing of the model as well, because it can't move very fast. And in the game I had against Broad. Sorry. The only thing that really surprised me in that game was how poorly he rolls leadership dice on his inner circle.
Oh yeah,
Meaning
that
they
was big.
legged it turn 1 and couldn't get their asses back into the battle by turn 4. So they were just taken straight out of the game. But
He wasn't surprised though. He did that apparently he did that in his first game as well. They were okay in our game, but apparently they ran away quite a bit on that Sunday.
Scaredy pants.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of the show. Let's just touch on what we offer on our Patreon quickly for those that may not know. Our Patreon is Power Fist, and what we offer there is behind the scenes look on what we're working on, all of our work in progress photos, and a couple of times a month we also post tutorials about all things that we're working on, from different schemes to new techniques to even sculpting stuff. So definitely check that out. We're building up a great community on there at the moment. And we're going to plan some new and exciting things for the new year as well. So if you want to be satiated with some great hobby content, make sure you go out to the Power Fist Patreon and check that. And you can also sign up for a free member as well for a week, and that will give you all the behind the scenes stuff, just not the access to the paid PDF tutorials for now. And with that, Kieran, that brings us to the end of the show. Is there anything else you want to say before we say our goodbyes? Thank you to the chat as well.
Yeah, thank you,
for
chat.
jumping on this live stream at very, very late notice. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for hosting us on Sunday. Thanks for the beautiful food. Thanks for welcoming us into your home. It was fantastic. Great to see the boys again.
Anytime.
Like the video, subscribe. We love you all. Thanks for tuning in.
Also, I'd like to hear people's thoughts on our line predicament at the moment.
Yeah.
Let us know how you've been going in your games and how prevalent line is just taking hold of your games. Be very, very interested to know. So yeah.
And if there are any units that have positively surprised them as well in a good way. So that'd be nice.
Let's hear it. The more data we have, the better.
Yep.
All right, let's get out of here.
Cool. See ya.
Heresy.